good evening, and welcome to Tea Time.
Hey everybody, welcome to Tea Time. I'm so glad you're joining me tonight. It is Monday, it's May 12th, and I'm going to talk about my weekend real quick because there's a lot to talk about and get to my guest. Friday night, I really didn't do anything. I stayed in and I was learning lines because I booked a couple of things. Woo! Saturday, I ended up at PaisanCon in Rutherford, New Jersey, and a lot of the cast of The Sopranos were there, people I've had on the show and people I'm trying to get on the show. So I'm not going to show a lot of pictures, but I'm going to give some shout outs to Fred Rubino, who's a fellow comedian, and I'm going to give some shout outs to Joe DeBarry, John Fiore, Artie Pasquale, Al Sapienza, Larry Romano, Paul Borghese, Gino Caffarelli, Ozzy, Ray Boom Boom Mancini, Roseanne Sarantino, Oksana Lada, and Federico Castelluccio. That's it. I can't show the pics. I'm sorry, because I'm only allowed 26. And yesterday was Mother's Day, and we're going to put up pic with Mom. There she is, me and Mom. For Mother's Day, we had a wonderful, I host a brunch every year at my house with the familia. And then that was yesterday. And then I watched Nona's. Everyone's talking about Nona's. So I watched Nona's on Netflix, and it was very good. And what I loved about it was that it was a true story. And of course, it was nice to see, an Italian story without a mob and cursing and violence. So kudos to everyone, including Pescatelli.
Tammy
Pescatelli. Shout out to Tammy, girl. Kudos to you for playing Vince Vaughn's cousin. I'm so excited for you, and I'm hoping to get you on the show soon. Okay, and one more shout out to my good friend. It's going to be pick Z, please. Perry Williams. Perry Williams, today's his birthday. He won 2 Super Bowls with the New York Giants, and I'm excited. Happy birthday, and congrats, because tonight he's being inducted into the North Carolina Hall of Fame. Thank you. And Bobby, if you could put up why real quick, I have to say, Saturday in the Park was written and directed by Larry Romano from King of Queens. He was on King of Queens for 2 years. Sweet man. He's going to do my show. Great movie. It was originally a play, turned into a movie, and it was lovely. They showed that on Saturday. All right, let me get to my guest, because there's
I was going to say, it's supposed to be about me.
A plethora of information here.
We've already wasted valuable time. You could have got 9 more pictures of me. Instead, we got to look at Larry Romano. I mean, come on.
Listen, he's here, and I'm so happy he's here. He's a comedian, he's an actor, he's an impressionist, he's also a writer, and I'm blessed to call him a friend. Rob Bartlett is in the house.
Tea time. It's tea time.
It is.
Yeah, it works on so many different levels, because
I know
it's
drinking,
like
golfing. I know.
British, and then and your name starts with a T.
I know. Well, isn't that amazing?
I didn't get that until on the way here. It was like a bolt out of the blue.
Listen, I want everyone to get to know you. If no one knows him, you need to know him. And you've seen him. You've seen him in films. You've seen him on television. You've seen him on Broadway. The man is all over the place. And yeah, that too. Yeah. But we don't talk about that.
Okay.
So you're originally from Brooklyn.
Yes.
Originally.
Yes, born in Brooklyn.
And then you moved to Farmingdale?
No, moved to Massapequa Park.
Massapequa Park
But I went to the
first.
Farmingdale School District. I went to Farmingdale Schools.
Okay, so...
Because we were right on the line.
So that's what's going on with my brother's daughter. My niece, Victoria, is in Massapequa, but she goes to Farmingdale High School.
Okay.
She's actually going to graduate
A
next
lot of
year.
North Massapequans go to Farmingdale
Yes,
as well. Yes.
yes. And, but let's go back to pick A because... Hello? Pick A? Because you were freaking adorable, and we have to go back, way back, to pick A. Look how cute!
Yeah, the die was cast pretty early on. That I wasn't going to be a male model
I
or
love that pic.
a quantum physicist.
So
or,
freaking cute. Oh my God, adorable.
Yeah, I was kind of like a Spanky McFarlane of the late 50s. It's just...
I love that pic. And okay, so you're in Farmingdale High School. You get involved, which we're going to show the next pic. You get involved in
The Green Room Players.
Yes.
Ken Ulrich was the director.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine I'm still friends with
Yeah.
to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Moonface Martin from Anything Goes. One of the best parts in musical theater.
Love it.
Every single line is a funny line.
Oh, yeah.
You get 2 great songs, and then every time there's a big dance number, they find a reason to haul you off stage so you don't have to be in the big dance number. It was
Thank
great.
you. I mean, really, this was your calling. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
This was
well,
it's in your blood, it's in
yeah,
your veins, it's in
early
your
on.
soul. It's like, it's just part of your DNA.
Yeah, it was a survival too. You know, it was like you found what made it work. Because I tried to get my father's approval very early on.
Yeah, well,
And,
that didn't work for me either.
Well,
You want to what?
show me any actor, any comedian, I'll show you a very dysfunctional childhood. And I didn't really fit in with the rest of the kids.
Right,
you know,
right.
Because I was just, the geeky nerd until I found my tribe,
Yeah,
which was
yeah.
the drama club. I was a drama geek.
That's it. That's it.
And then
And
the
that
rest
was,
is, as
and
they say,
then,
history.
and then, you did go to university, right? You
I went to Alfred University.
Alfred University.
I went there for 3 reasons. 1, because it was named after Batman's butler. 2, because Robert Klein had graduated from there. And 3, because they were the only school I applied to that gave me money. So I went there as an English major,
Those
theater
are all
minor.
great reasons.
But I left after my sophomore year.
Okay.
Because apparently you had to actually go to class.
You had to actually go. Where the teacher knows you, sees you.
I preferred to stay at home and write a stage show that I was going to do with the people from the radio station. I was a DJ in the radio station. We had this little group. It was almost like a Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, yeah.
We were the BARF show, BARFF, the Back Alley Radio Funny Farm, and we were going to do a live stage show. And so my sophomore year, I pretty much stayed in my room because I was an
Wow.
RA, and I just wrote the show and didn't bother going to class.
We're going to put a pick C, please, because you ended up at Richard Dixon's White House Inn.
Yes.
Right?
Richard M. Dixon's White House Inn, which was on Hicksville
C?
Road.
Pick C, please.
Between Boundary Avenue and the Seaford Oyster Bay.
There you are. We're going to stay there a little bit
It's a
because
little,
we're going to...
little tiny
Yeah,
place.
yeah,
It
yeah.
was called the Dugout at one time. It was a little
Right.
tiny cafe.
Yeah.
And the man who looked like Richard M. Dixon,
Right.
was the guy who owned it, and it was a showcase room. And I saw it in the Long Island Press.
Right.
That he had this little tiny ad.
Yeah.
And, I was taking
And you
a
said,
I was taking a year leave of absence, supposedly, to make enough money to go back to school, but
Really?
kind of discovered
yeah,
stand-up.
no. Yeah, no.
Because I got into stand-up because I thought it was the quickest way to getting into acting. Because Robin Williams, Steve Martin, all those guys were
That's
doing
where they
stand-up.
started.
And that's how they kind of...
That's where they
And you
started.
said, too, the same thing with you, except it was TV. Right? It
Yeah.
was like all the stand-ups were
Yeah,
going to
they
TV.
all
and
had their own sitcoms
So,
back then.
so I was told that was probably the quickest way. And kind of like Humphrey Bogart in Casablanca. He went to Casablanca for the waters, Get into comedy, it'll get you into acting. So I was misinformed,
It's so funny.
as Bogey says.
Let's go to pick D, please, because
I love this audible calling.
Eddie Murphy, okay, that's where you met Eddie Murphy,
Yes.
right? And you,
Bob Nelson.
and the next pick is Bob Nelson.
Oh, no, it's Bob Nelson in the middle between the two of us.
Go back.
That's Bob.
Yeah, right.
That's at the Fort Lauderdale comic strip.
Wait, Bob started out as Bobby, I-E?
That was the Fort Lauderdale comic strip in
Okay.
1980. It was,
But leave that pic there a second, thank you, because basically the three of you, right, Eddie, you, and Bob, and I love Bob dearly. Eddie, I never met, but the three of you formed an improv trio called, go ahead, say it.
Oh, you said you did the research.
The Identical Triplets.
Get it? Get it, boys and girls?
Thank you. The Identical Triplets, and the three of you, you know.
We were friends, and we knew each other from Dixon's.
And you said, hey, let's do this.
Well, it was so funny because the way it started,
great.
we liked to hang out with each other. We kind of gravitated, you know, we knew each other. We just gelled. There was great chemistry.
Yeah.
And one night we decided we weren't going to go to the club. We were actually going to have a social life. We were going to go somewhere. We were going to go bowling. We were going to go to the movies. Nothing worked out. Couldn't get a lane. Movie times, everything was sold out. So, of course, we ended up back up at Dixon's, and we kind of just took over the show.
Wow.
And Eddie was wearing this fur coat. And so he just said that he was an Eskimo, and Bob was doing his hunter character, and I decided that I was going to be a walrus.
Okay.
And so we were, you know, at the North Pole, and we did like this 25-minute long-form improv.
Wow.
Where the walrus wasn't Paul, it was Ringo, because I had drumsticks, and I put those in my thing for the tusks, and it was a lot funnier than it sounds.
Oh my
and
God!
We did this
No, I could just picture it.
And we just fed each other back and forth, and it just gelled. And we just said, you know, we should work together all the time. And we figured we could get booked together.
Yes.
We would each do about, 10, 15 minutes of our separate acts.
Right.
And then we would do these
together.
sketches and improv stuff in between at the end. And it was a blast. It was just more fun. And in those days, we made all the rules because it was. That was Long Island comedy. We started it. It was the Magnificent Seven.
And back then, you had East Side Comedy Club.
Well, East Side came about a year or two later.
And then you had Konkama Comedy Club. I mean, there were so many comedy clubs on
Chuckles,
Long Island back
then.
then.
You had Governors, you had the Brokerage.
Right. But I remember doing Konkama Comedy Club. And
I never did
Konkama.
No, that was after my time.
And then I did. There were just tons of places out here. And you went into the city.
You had Ferns in Roslyn. You had, like I said before, the Brokerage.
Well, my home base was Jimmy's Comedy Alley in Bayside.
And of course, that was my home club because I lived
that
initially
was my home base.
After I got married and we had our first son. We lived 2 blocks from the club, Jimmy's Comedy Alley, and that was some great times there
Wasn't
too.
it? That's where I met everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I met you back then too, but I met
great
Dice and Jerry and Joey Cola and Richie Byrne, and I mean that's why I met everybody.
It was
back
a great
then.
room. Great room. I was like the house MC for the longest time.
It was great.
Yeah, it was great.
It was just so much fun. It really just was. And then you also, when you went to East Side, that was Richie Menavini's.
Yep.
You know.
That was really, I think, where it all kind of gelled.
Yeah.
Basically, it was the 7 of us who kind of started at Dixon's. You know, it was Bob and myself and Richie and Jackie and Dave Hawthorne and Bob Woods and Eddie, and we all kind of we called ourselves the Magnificent Seven.
Yeah.
And we made all the rules because we started it, you know, so we were really the only acts initially working East Side, and then city acts would come out, and then they kind of did like a little comic exchange where we would go into the city, got into Comic Strip and Catch, and we got the auditions in there, and then eventually we got road work, you know, first in Tri-State, you know, one-nighters, and then actually like in 1982, I started at least 2 weeks on the road, somewhere in Atlanta or Raleigh or, you know, somewhere in Michigan.
So how long was the trio, the triplets together?
We were together, I guess, maybe a year and a half, 2 years. It was when Eddie got the photo you saw was at the Comedy Condo at the Comic Strip. And Eddie had never done it before. I had done it the year prior to that. And it was 82, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've done it a couple of times. First time I did it was 1980. And 82, Eddie and I went, and it was his first time. And the night before, Bob had done the Merv Griffin show. Merv Griffin used to do a week or
Yes.
two
Yeah.
every year from Lincoln Center.
Yeah.
And so Bob was the only one of us who had an agent. He was signed to APA, and he got Merv Griffin's show, and Eddie was there, and I mean, I was there, and Richie was there, and
Yeah.
we were all there to cheer him on. And he, of course, you got,
Yeah.
went for the price on Wilson. Ain't Your Night Kid. He got bumped.
Yeah.
He never got to go on. But his agent said, "Do you know anybody who, do you know any black comics?
Yeah.
Because they need a black guy for Saturday Night Live." The
Right.
guy who they had hired,
Right.
Charlie Barnett, who was an amazing street performer, they discovered couldn't read. He was illiterate, so they couldn't use him. And so Bob turned to me and said, "Don't you dare tell Eddie. Don't you dare tell Eddie." And so, of course, we're on the plane. I said, "Oh, by the way, they're looking for a black guy." And we weren't on the ground
Oh
30
my
seconds before Eddie was on a
God.
payphone calling Richie Tinkin at the comic strip to say, "You got to get me an audition."
Yeah.
And that whole summer, he auditioned. And they
Wow.
kept bringing him back, and they kept stringing him along, and they wouldn't pull the trigger on him.
I hate when that happens.
And I don't know why.
Make a decision.
He was so depressed. His parents were giving him a lot of pressure, like in
Yeah.
a real job, and he
Yeah.
was pretending he was working
He
at
was
a
like
shoe
20, right? He was like 20?
19 or 20.
Yeah.
He was working at the shoe store in Roosevelt Field.
Yeah.
And then he quit, but didn't tell his parents, but he would get up in the morning and pretend like he was going to work because he
Right.
wanted to get him off his back.
Yeah, yeah.
And finally they hired him as a secondary player, not even a primetime
yeah,
player. And he'd sit in my kitchen and he would just shake his head. He was so frustrated. And my mother would make him something to eat, and he'd sit there and he'd cry to me. "I don't know what they do. If it's meant to be, And he got it, and then literally like 3 weeks after they made him a
That was it.
featured player,
Yeah.
he was a primetime
That was
player
it.
because they just knew.
Yeah.
So of course, that was the end of the triplets. And then Bob and I
Amazing.
started doing stuff together.
Yeah, I mean,
unofficially, but
you-
usually just at the East Side.
But you eventually, you were all over the place, like seriously doing comedy. You were like, gradually, you were in AC, you were in Vegas, you were traveling.
Oh yeah! Once I started on my own, I had like my own act. It was
Yeah.
after my manager Gary Grant had found this luncheon club
Right.
in the Garment District called Club 1407. It was vacant on weekends. Friday nights and Saturday nights was vacant, so we four-walled it, and I started working on a one-man show there, and brought in our own. People who I'd met on the road
Yeah, yeah.
were opening for me, like people who used to open for me, like Ray Romano and Jeff Foxworthy. All these guys would open for me down at Club 1407.
Oh, that's great.
Brett Butler, all these people.
Wow.
And so from that, it just kind of really solidified
Yeah.
me being able to do it on my own.
Yeah.
And then, I have Crohn's disease, and I had
Yes.
a really, really bad bout of it, and had to go for major surgery.
Yeah.
And was out for 6-8 months.
Yeah. For a
And
while.
then just about that time, I went on the road again, but my son was like 2 or 3 at the first time, and I couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't. I hated being away.
Yeah.
And I said to Gary, I can't do this. And so
Yeah.
we used 1407 as kind of like the conduit.
Right.
And that's how I stumbled into Imus, was through the
Wow.
back door from
Well,
Club
before
1407.
you hit Imus in '87, right? Was it
I
'87?
think it was. It was the year he.
I think it was '87, but you were there, up until the end.
I was
mean, you
with him for
were-
31
till
years.
2018,
Yeah,
right?
31 years.
31 years. That's longer than most marriages.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
But before '87, I'm going to go back to '85. 1985, you did a movie called The 6 O'Clock News.
We don't like to talk about that. It's just one of those things
You
where
know, but
it seemed like a
wait.
good idea at the time.
But then '87, you hit Imus, right? And you're there for 31 years, okay? As a writer
Yeah.
and a performer,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Imus in the morning, and but you did a lot of impressions, and I love every single one of them. Okay, you did. Oh wait, let me just give some. Come on, Tom Carvel.
Tom Carvel actually was the thing that kind of put me on the map.
Yes,
was
I
my
know.
Tom Carvel impression.
I know, and then it went on from there. The Godfather, Dice Clay, Paula Dean. Get ready to put up pick F, please. Thank you. Pick F. We're gonna go pick F because I'm mentioning him, so we might as well show him. Larry King.
One of my favorite characters.
Stay there, Gary Busey. Let's go to pick G, please, because you also did Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Hello, thank you, and that's it for that. And but the first character you ever did was Sal.
Salmonella.
Manella.
Salmonella was
Salmonella. Monella.
Yes. He actually kind of came out of the Tom Carvel bit because
Yeah.
Tom Carvel, it was like this multi-character thing. I would play Tom Carvel, the guy who owned the Carvel store, whose name is Louis Panabianco,
Right.
based on a guy I went to high school with,
Yes.
and his wife, who didn't speak English, and his daughter,
Right.
who had something wrong with her feet, and she needed an operation because she walked like a duck. And so Sal kind of came out of the Louis Panabianco thing.
Right.
And Sal it was one of the first characters I brought to IMAS after Carvel was Salmonella. And then
of course you have that famous, Night Before Christmas in Brooklyn.
that was my ticket. That was
your
that was a big break.
poem calling card there.
I don't know how many millions of times I've seen. There are so many websites that have posted it. Everybody's claiming it was them. But the way that happened was my son was young and it was right around Christmas time. And he had a nightmare, and so I got up with him. We were sitting in the living room. We were still living in Bayside, and I had a coloring book. It was the Night Before Christmas coloring book, and I was flipping through it, and I don't know why. I was reading the coloring book to him because I was too tired to read him an actual book.
Right.
So I read him a coloring book. There was only one line on each thing. And I said something when I was saying to him. I says, and he threw open the sash. I said, why did I threw open the sash? And I thought, wait a minute, that sounded like Sal.
Right.
And I started going through it as Sal. And so I started to write in the coloring book. And literally,
wow,
what I wrote in that coloring book, I wish I still had it, is exactly the way it still is today.
Wow.
It was just word for word. I didn't change it, or it just went boom, 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 boom. It just, you get that blinding bolt of inspiration.
Yes, I've
That's
had that.
what happened.
I've had it.
And thank God for the comedy,
It's rare, but it happens. It does. It has happened to me once. Well, twice. Let's continue, shall we? In 1993, we're going to put up pick H, please. Because in 1993, you actually did 13 episodes of Monday Night Raw.
Yeah. Now, that kind of goes in the same category as 6 o'clock news, where it seemed like a good idea at the time. 6 o'clock news, this is the idea that after 6
How
o'clock
much did you really know about wrestling at the time, Rob?
People thought 6 o'clock news was a porn movie. It wasn't a porn movie. They had all this news footage that they decided they were going to write a news team.
Oh my God, it's so funny.
Broadcast around this stupid news footage. And I played the sports reporter, Marty Cohn, with a Spanish accent. Ha, 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 we get it.
Oh my God.
But Raw, I think, again, it seemed like a good idea at the time.
You did 13 episodes.
I was the first 13, one of the hosts, and I am I proudly bear this mantle. I am one of the top 10 worst wrestling commentators in professional wrestling history. I'm not number one, but there's still time.
All right, but you've
There's
made
still
up
time.
for it in many, many, many ways. The same year, you also did Best of Heroes of the Squared Circle, which was a video. And then you decided in 93 to actually, let me study a little bit of this acting thing. And you did some Meisner method scene study?
Yes, I did.
With Joanne?
Joanna Bexon.
Yeah, Joanna.
I hadn't taken class in a long time, and she was recommended to me as the teacher who could help stand-up comedians find their inner actor. And
I think it worked.
She has it's bare bones, it's common sense, it's unbelievable. It's based in Meisner technique, but it's the no BS technique, and it served me well.
It made sense because in what pick? Please, making Bobby work it. You starred in, and made your Broadway debut in More to Love with Dana Reeves.
Yeah,
and that's a great pick.
It is a great pick. She was really
Thank you.
amazing. There are no words to describe what a honor it was to work with her. It was her first Broadway role as well. She was one of the most inspiring people I'd ever met in my entire life. And her attitude actually helped me get over the fact that the show, let me put it to you this way, the pull quote from the Times, boys and girls, was avert your eyes. So it's not exactly the kind of thing you can hang off the marquee to spur ticket sales. You know,
Oh
New York
my
Times, avert your eyes.
Wow.
But she was amazing. That was a weird thing. Again, I feel like all the breaks I've had, I've kind of fallen in through the back door.
Yes.
That happened because I was one of the last acts to.
But what made you decide to write? I mean, you
Well,
wrote.
I tell you, if you just shut up and let me get a word in edgewise here. What is this, your show? Oh yeah, wait a minute, it is. I was the last headliner at the Sands Hotel in Vegas before they blew it up.
Yeah.
And it was the stage that the Rat Pack had been on. There was a lot of history.
Oh,
They hadn't
yeah.
changed the carpets in the room since the Rat Pack was there. You know, it was still the pink shag on the front. It was, And this Broadway and off-Broadway producer who owned a couple of off-Broadway houses in Manhattan won 10 grand at the roulette wheel, was feeling kind of happy, and stumbled into the showroom, kind of recognized my name from Imus, and then wanted to take a meeting the next day. And we kind of sat around my suite and we were talking, and said, I want to throw a spotlight on the fat guy, and I want to put you in one of my theaters. So Gary and I were kind of talking over things, and Gary said, well, instead of just doing your act, let's try to make this something bigger than just your act. You know, it's just an opportunity.
Yeah.
Find a way to string it all together. And so I thought, Jonathan Winters was one of my all-time heroes, and he used to do this show where they would let him loose in an attic with just all kinds of crap that you'd find in an attic, and he would use it. Bits of just. So I came with the idea of making it a garage because it was set on Long Island.
Yeah.
And I had just turned 40, and it was about the midlife crisis, turning 40 and not being where you wanted to be, and all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of autobiographical, and it was a way of stringing together all my little character bits.
Wow.
And we did it out of town. It was at that time it was called Have a Nice Life. We did it at the Stanford Center for the Arts, and we were supposed to go into like the Minetta Lane, but then the Eugene O'Neill Theater became vacant because there was a show from Britain there called The Herbal Bed that closed before they thought it was going. There was a big gap, and they offered it to us, and the producers jumped at the chance, and it became a Broadway show, and that was where we had the trouble, because they brought in a big-time Broadway director. They brought in Jack O'Brien, who directed Hairspray, and Damn Yankees with Jerry Lewis. I mean, big-time Broadway director. And we had Dana Reeve, unbelievably. And Joyce Van Patten played my agent.
Yes.
And the New York Times was not amused. We had 16 performances.
Wow.
16 previews, 4 performances. And we closed on a Sunday matinee. It was. I cried in my beer for a while after that one.
I'm
But then,
sure.
the way this business works.
Hey, it is a very fickle industry, as you know.
The very next year, I got Tabletop.
The very next year, you did Spin the Bottle, which was a movie, and you also did Tabletop,
Tabletop, that was the
which
thing that.
got you a Drama Desk Award.
Yeah, I
Hello.
can. It was kind of.
That's not too shabby.
It's again through the back door. It was, almost literally a year to the day we closed.
Really?
That I got this audition from Jay Binder, who had cast More to Love.
Yeah.
And Jay Binder said, they're doing this off Broadway show.
Right.
And I just read the script, and he said, "You're so perfect for this part. I'm gonna try to get you an audition." And Connie Grappa, the director, didn't want to see me because I was a stand-up. And Jay Binder said, if you don't actually see him for this part, you're crazy. And so
Wow. He pushed for you.
he pushed for me and brought me in. And the playwright, Rob Ackerman, was in the room. And I did the scene, and I left. I said, please stay. Stay around for a little bit. And I was in the waiting room, and I hear screaming in the room. And apparently she was dead set against me, And Rob said, this is, because Rob had been a prop guy in a commercial shoot, which is kind of what the play was about.
Right.
Shooting a product shot.
Yeah.
In real time, 90 minutes, no intermission. It was really, and he said, he is exactly like the guy this is based on. We got to have me on it, and he was able to convince her.
Wow.
And then the New York Times, all of a sudden, avert your eyes, Rob Bartlett is an inspiration. So it's like, it's just this business the way.
I know. I know.
But
But we
and
all
that
know
kind
how
of,
opinions are. Right?
that got me that legitimacy. We moved to off-Broadway. We were at the American Place Theater.
That's great.
And
Wow.
that led to Chicago.
Amazing. Well, we're going to talk about that. In 2000, you did Table One, which is a movie with Chuck Zito, Stephen Baldwin, Louis Guzman, Burt Young.
Burt Young.
God bless. God bless.
That was great. They let me. I was supposed to be the agent of. Who's the guy from Mad TV? Who is I can't remember his name now. I hate myself for not knowing his name.
That's okay.
I was his agent. He was struggling there.
Yeah.
But the way I was his agent was I charged a fee up front to get him to work. And so they needed me to talk to Burt Young while there's something else going on. They said, just ad-lib something.
Yeah.
And so I was talking to Burt Young and telling him about how I was the Taco Bell Chihuahua's agent, and, that's not his real voice. And, I did the replacement, I did the fourth Lassie, and just kind of off the top of my head. And when they yelled cut, and Burt Young, he couldn't hold it in anymore. I really got him to laugh. And he had a great laugh.
Oh, so that's great.
That was a great moment.
Yeah. 2000 to 2002. Pick Jay, please. Thank you. You did Law and Order, SVU. You did six episodes, right?
I think only 5.
I don't know.
Well,
they threw you a bone.
They threw me a bone because the episode I was in, that it was a sequel.
And I love watching you on that, I have to tell you.
To the first episode, which was the previous season.
Yes.
Somebody else played the character.
Really?
Yeah, and then I played Milton Schoenfeld for 5 episodes after that. I got to be Rob Lowe and Margot Kidder's agent, lawyer.
Yeah.
And I got to be Henry Winkler's.
Henry Winkler, which, hello, yes, Henry Winkler.
Winkler's
Pick
lawyer.
T, please.
Which was
so let's throw that up since I have it.
Great.
T.
That was really kind of cool.
No, that's a good wife. Henry Winkler.
Like I say, it doesn't look like Henry Winkler.
Where is he? Right down. There. No, right there. That's him. There you go.
He was such a great guy.
I heard he's a sweetheart.
I heard
he's a sweetheart.
It's been my experience. The bigger they are, the nicer and more down to earth they are.
Isn't that nice?
It's amazing.
Isn't that nice?
I think that's a key to longevity in this business.
Well, you know what? Chicago. Let's talk about Chicago. We have a video. You did Chicago 2002 to 2004, Amos Hart. Can we play that video, please? Let's play that clip. Cellophane. Cellophane? Mm-hmm. Oh, what? Mr. Cellophane? Yeah, Mr. Cellophane.
Mr. Cellophane should have been my name. Mr. Cellophane, 'cause you can look right through me, walk right by me, and never know I'm there. I tell ya, Cellophane, Mr. Cellophane should have been my name. Mr. Cellophane, 'cause you can look right through me, walk right by me, and never know I'm there.
And the man could sing.
That's one of the rare clips where I'm actually on pitch. Any of the other clips, I've been looking at them lately. Every time I did Brotherhood of Man from How to Succeed, the Thanksgiving Day Parade, Letterman, Today's Show, I'm so off pitch.
Really?
It's
really?
painful. It's painful.
All right. Well, you did. Okay. So, I mean, Broadway. Broadway.
It was.
I mean, come on.
I fell into that
I mean,
one too.
I was in like an off Broadway, like at the curb kind of show. You know what I mean?
Again, it was. I always thought that was the kind of thing that it was not my level. It was like that was a rarefied air.
You never saw yourself doing that.
No, well, not really. It didn't seem realistic to me.
Really?
I thought you had to be like a special kind of person. But I did this thing again. God bless him. The most, Jay Bender, the most amazing casting agent on the planet, got Walter Bobby to cast me in this City Center Encores thing, where they do like this 2-week from first audition to the last performance is 2 weeks. It's a staged presentation of a musical that has not been revived in many years for whatever reason. And we did Golden Boy. And it was with the guy who played Carlton in Fresh Prince.
Okay,
I'm glad it's not just
I know
me.
who you're talking about.
Anyway,
I have a better excuse.
I can't remember. Well, no, but I have a virtual one.
No, but I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his name now.
Anyway,
Alonzo.
Yeah. So.
I got the first name.
I got the small part.
Yes.
And he wanted me to ad lib this little thing where
Right.
they had to cover some time, and
Yeah.
I came up with some stupid piece of business. What if a cock the schmata was the ad lib? And a couple months later,
Yeah.
I'm having lunch with Joyce Van Patten from More to Love.
Yeah.
And Walter's there, and she knows him, and so we all sat and started talking. We had lunch with Walter. And then 3 days later, I got a call from Gary. I'm heading home from IMIS. He said, it was Wednesday. He said, turn around and go back into the city. I said, what do you mean? He says, you got to go see the matinee of Chicago. I said, why? He said, because Walter Bobby wants you to audition for the musical director after the matinee.
Yeah.
I said, what? He said, yeah, they want you to audition for Mr. Cellophane. They want you to audition for Amos Hart. And I saw the show, and I knew that was the part that, I would have killed my mother to play. And so I went and I saw the matinee and went up on the stage at the Schubert Theater for the musical director, Bob Billig, and sang Cellophane.
Wow.
And got into the car, and on the way home, I got the call that I'd gotten the part.
Oh my God.
What had happened was Brad Garrett was supposed to play the part.
Really?
But 2 weeks before he was supposed to start, he got the Jackie Gleason TV movie. And so he had to bow out. But they only had 2 weeks to come up with a replacement.
Wow.
Walter knew that I could do something fast because I'd done the Encore thing.
Yeah.
And I happened to have lunch with him 2 days earlier.
Wow.
And that's how
You
Chicago
know
happened.
what? There are no accidents in life.
I don't know. It seems like a pretty big accident to me.
I don't know. I believe that things happen the way they're supposed to happen.
Yeah, well, I
You know,
believe that.
there's only a certain amount we can control.
Yeah.
But things, no matter how
Everything
much.
happens for a reason.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
I totally agree with that.
And so I did Chicago for years, off and on. I'm in and out for like 4 or 5 times.
And then in 2004, you did the Easter Egg Adventure, which was an animated movie. You did the voice of Boss Baker.
Boss Baker Bunny. It was one of my 2 great big voiceover.
And then,
cartoon.
2003, 2005, you did Kenny the Shark.
Kenny the Shark.
which
I was
a
Marty the Dog.
Yes, Marty the Dog, 20 episodes, 26. Did I write
Hey,
20,
Kenny.
26? There you are. And then you did more shows. You did Sweet Charity with Christina Applegate.
Well, before Sweet Charity was
what?
Was the Broadway production of Little Shop of Horrors.
Little Shop. Okay,
Because I got
so
that because of Chicago.
I was trying to figure it out, the order. But we have pick L, please, from Little Shop.
And that had been
I hope
out of
it's the right pick.
That had been out of town with
L?
another production. Yeah, there
That's
it is.
it.
Me and the Urchins.
Thank you.
Connie Grappo, who directed Tabletop,
Yes.
had happened to be Howard Ashman, the co-writer with Alan Menken of Little Shop of Horrors. She was his assistant. He was the original director.
You originated that role. Is that
The
true?
Broadway role.
The Broadway role.
Off Broadway, it was done by,
Okay.
and that's where Connie Grappo worked with Howard Ashman.
Yeah.
And in his will, he said if it ever went to Broadway, she's the only one who could direct it. And so she did her own production of it out of town in Florida that fell apart. Hunter Foster was in it, though, one of the only people to transfer over to the Jerry Zaks production of Broadway. And her husband, Lee Wilkoff, was the original Seymour. He played Mr. Mushnick, which is the part that I got.
Love that show.
Anyway, the producers fired her. They paid her off, and I got Jerry Zaks put me up for Mushnick, and then I got Mushnick, and then Mushnick led to The Odd Couple.
The Odd Couple.
Where I actually got to work with Brad Garrett.
Brad was in it. Matthew Broderick, Nathan Lane. Hey, let's see the video clip from that, shall we?
Let's.
An ice cold glass of beer for Murray.
Thank you, Felix.
Where's your coaster?
My what?
Your coaster, the little round thing that goes under the glass.
I think I bet it.
I knew I was winning too much. Here.
Always try and use your coasters, fellas. Scotch and a little bit of water.
Scotch and a little bit of water. And I have my coaster.
I hate to be a pest, fellas, but you know what wet glasses can do.
They leave little rings on the table.
Eats right through the polish, destroys the finish.
So let's watch those little rings, huh?
A nice clean ashtray for Roy. And a sandwich for Vinny.
Gee, it smells good. What is it?
Bacon, lettuce, tomato, and mayonnaise on pumpernickel toast.
Where'd you get it?
I made it in the kitchen.
You mean you put in toast and cooked bacon just for me? If you don't like it, he'll make you a meatloaf. Takes him 5 minutes.
Sitting next to Nathan.
That's who?
Lee Wilkoff, who was the original Seymour,
Wow.
who was married to Connie Grappa, who directed Tabletop.
Wow.
So it just seems like there's a scary little
Yes,
thing here.
yes.
There's a weird network,
Yeah.
comic network here.
And that was 2005 to 2006,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And
Wow.
during that, we were rehearsing that
Yeah.
on 42nd Street. And Neil Simon was at every rehearsal
Yeah.
with his yellow legal pad because he was changing to kind of update. And it was originally a 3-act. He took half the second act, put it in the first act, and the other half of the second act, and put it in the third act, so that it was only 2 acts.
Wow.
And the guy who was playing Herman in Sweet Charity with Christina Applegate
Right.
had gotten ill.
Yeah.
And Wayne Knight, Newman from
Yeah,
Seinfeld,
yeah.
was coming in to play him, but not until the fall.
Okay.
And so Neil Simon asked me
Yeah.
if I would step in and do Herman, because I had done Herman in a workshop of
Right,
Sweet Charity
right, right.
with Jane, what's her, from 30 Rock, Jane Krakowski. Jane Krakowski. And Neil knew that I knew the part
Right.
and asked if I would fill in that summer. So we were shooting Imus at MSNBC in Secaucus.
Right.
And so in the morning, I would leave my house at 3:30 to get
I
to
was just going to ask you how
MSNBC
you did all that.
to get into makeup because it was on TV
Yes.
to do radio.
Right.
And then I would go to rehearsal in the city, 42nd Street, rehearse Odd Couple, and then I would go over to the theater to play Herman in Sweet Charity,
Yeah.
and then drive home, get home around midnight. And I did that for an entire summer.
Wow.
I wish I still had the money from when I did all that, but of course, I just, squandered it on
Oh my gosh.
cheap beer and loose women.
So let's pick up, I think it's pick M. You did How to Succeed in Business without really trying with Daniel Radcliffe.
Dan Radcliffe.
And there you guys are. What a pick.
He is one of the most incredible people. Talk about, he showed up, and Nathan Lane did this too. Nathan Lane showed up at first rehearsal Odd Couple, completely off book.
Really?
Dan showed up at first rehearsal of How to Succeed, off book, knew all his music, knew all his choreography.
Wow.
I mean, just they set the tone.
Yeah,
They set the bar,
Yeah,
and then
that's it.
and
That's
he
it.
could not have been more kind
Yeah.
or nurturing or supportive, and just
nice.
really just a wonderful human being.
Amazing. Just amazing.
And talented, God
Yeah.
almighty.
And 208 to 209, you did 3 episodes of Ugly Betty.
Yes, I was
Fun
Troy.
Fun show.
Troy, the skittish security guard.
2011, you did Running Wild, which was a TV series. You did Late Night with David Letterman. And you also did Standing By, which played Marcus, which was a short.
Standing By was, I guess, like a proof of concept short
Yes.
to turn Tabletop into a feature film.
Okay.
And so I
Okay.
got cast
Yeah.
from the original Tabletop cast
Got
to
it.
play Marcus.
Got it.
In that. And that, I guess it never really came to fruition.
And then in 2015, you did All in Time, which is a movie. You played Rick.
That All in Time is a great little independent movie. It's, I think it's on YouTube, and it's definitely on
You can check it out.
Prime. It's a sweet, romantic as hell comedy
Yes.
with a really interesting twist.
Yeah.
And that was a great part.
And then we're going to put up pick P now, please. It should be P. We're going to go back to The Good Wife. Thank you. Which you played Bernie.
There's only 10 more letters, folks, if you're counting. So just hang in there. This will be over soon.
Stop. You did 3 episodes
Of
Bernie.
Bernie Bukovitz. For
Bukowitz.
some reason,
Yeah.
I keep getting cast
As?
middle-aged Jewish guys. This Irish Catholic man ends up being like the
God.
Lou Jacoby of our time.
That's great.
Herman and Sweet Charity.
Yeah.
Speed and the Odd
Yeah.
Couple. Milton Schoenfeld in SVU. Bernie Bukovitz.
Oh my God. 2017, you did Dr. Mantis, Insect Analyst, which was a short. You played Fred.
Dr. Mantis
And you wrote it with Smith Andrew?
Andrew Smith. It
Oh,
was
Andrew Smith? Was it backwards? Sorry.
Andrew Smith,
Okay.
who was a former head writer of SNL.
There you go.
A great comedy writer.
Did you happen to know Steve Corin?
No.
From SNL?
No.
As a writer?
No.
Okay, just checking. I went to high school with him.
Okay, if I see him, I'll tell him you said hello.
Just asking.
And it's an animated short.
Yes, it is.
And Gary, my manager, got this idea for an insect shrink, and I was the caterpillar,
Right.
who wanted to be a stand-up comedian. And it's a short. It's like 2.5
my
minutes
God,
long.
it's
and
great.
It went on the independent film circuit and
Yeah.
actually won some awards.
It did.
But Andrew and I wrote it, and I did the voice.
And then we're going to go to Pick Q, please, because Pick Q, you were on Elementary.
This is where I finally got to live my dream
for
and
5
play
episodes.
a cop.
He played a cop,
I
people.
finally
An
got
Irish
to play
cop.
a cop. An Irish cop, finally.
Dwyer.
The only non-Jewish character I ever played. It was a great experience because he actually had a story arc.
Oh my God! Yes.
They hired him to take over the precinct when
Yes.
his friend, who had kind of gone through academy with and
Right.
worked in uniform with, played by Aidan Quinn, gets shot. And while he was recuperating, Dwyer ran his precinct and Aidan Quinn's precinct simultaneously. And then he was a really bottom line guy, had no patience, didn't really have much respect for Sherlock or Watson, but they kind of got the job done, and so he let him do what they needed to do.
Right.
But then the 5th episode, we find out he has a dark side. He had already had a paper trail of him being a sexual harasser. And it turned out that he forces one of the female cops in Aidan Quinn's precinct to leave because he's done something, and Aidan Quinn had to kind of read him the riot act, and I had this big dramatic scene with Aidan Quinn at a cop bar in Queens, an actual cop bar.
That's great.
And it was my last shot of my last episode, and they do this thing when you've done a TV show, when it's over, they'll say, that's a wrap, everybody, and if a cast member is not returning, they say, and that's a wrap for Rob Bartlett.
Right, correct.
That's a series wrap for Rob Bartlett.
Yeah.
And then everybody applauds.
Yeah, claps. Yeah.
And Aidan Quinn had made this dramatic exit.
Yeah.
And so shaking hands with everybody, and I walk outside. Aidan Quinn is standing outside on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And goes like this. And he had gotten all the extras and all the crew members to line up around the corner on 2 sides down the block to my trailer.
Nice.
As like a little
that's
tribute.
Sweet.
That's what I'm saying. The bigger they are, the nicer
sweet.
they are.
I love.
It was a really
I
nice.
love
it was a very
hearing
cool
that.
thing.
I really
cool
do.
thing.
I love hearing that. We got to put up Pick R, please, because normally Pick R, because I usually put up everyone's black and white headshot.
I've just found some today. I should have sent you. I'm glad I didn't.
All right. Well,
that's my brooding.
Well, that's how I remember you
dramatic
when I met you back in the
Really?
day. Well, I'm sure I did meet you at Jimmy's, but then
you must have.
you had mentioned that you have Crohn's disease, and you brought that up, and I actually walked up to you because there was an event in Massapequa for Crohn's and colitis, and I introduced myself to you, and then we met after years later, and I did 3 half marathons with Team Challenge for Crohn's and colitis.
Wow.
And you were very generous and donated to my, me.
I didn't
coming
blow
up
you
with
off?
No, you didn't.
Oh,
you
thank God.
It was nice. It was very sweet of you to help me get to my goal but 3 half marathons for Crohn's and colitis Team Challenge. It was the best experience of my life and very challenging. And I know a lot of people who have Crohn's and colitis and IBS and a lot of issues, out there. So, a lot of people do suffer in silence because, a lot of people don't want to talk about bathroom issues.
It's true. It's true. 2 of my sons did a half marathon in Vegas.
Yes.
For their brother. My
Well,
son.
one of your sons has the Crohn's. Yeah.
And he, as
So,
I,
how sweet is that?
had to.
Yeah.
We both have ileostomies. We both have
Yeah.
a pouch.
Right.
And so, if you out there, anybody who's watching this, has Crohn's and are worried about,
And listen to your body. Listen to your body and go get checked.
don't worry. Because you can lead a healthy
Yes,
life.
absolutely.
And still be on TV and Broadway. all that kind of stuff.
All right, listen.
And get fat.
And I want people to know where to find you. So Rob Bartlett on Facebook and ROBIO, ROBIO 007 on Instagram. Okay, now we have 5 minutes left because this goes really fast. And I didn't take any breaks with you because I didn't want to, because I wanted to get everything in.
Okay.
But before we go to, because he has an event I want everyone to go to, I'm going to be there on May 22nd. But before we get to that, I have to put up Pick V, because in Pick V are some of my favorite people that you're with. Okay? So tell everyone who's in that picture. I know, obviously, Robin's got the beard on. We have John.
It's Christy Brinkley.
Right?
It's Robin Williams.
Yes.
It's John Leguizamo and
Right.
Harvey Firestein.
Yes.
It's backstage at the annual Equity Fights AIDS
Yes.
event. I think that
Okay.
was either an Easter bonnet competition or a
Okay.
Gypsy of the Year
But I had
award
to get, I
competition.
had to get that in because I cried the day Robin.
He was one of my
Passed,
first influences. It
and-
was him,
yeah.
Jonathan Winters, and Steve Martin were all very
Those were your
influential
three,
in
your top
my,
three.
and Pat Cooper. Pat Cooper was
Yes, yeah,
I actually
yeah.
did Pat Cooper's Italian wedding bit
You
in
did?
kindergarten.
Oh my God!
The kindergarten
oh my God,
talent
that's
show.
crazy.
I did. Da da
you.
dee da 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 ding ta
Oh
ta
my
dee, da.
God! Thank you. Oh my God! That is. Thank you, Bobby. Oh my God! That is crazy. All right. So listen. Okay, the main event here. So there is an event. Okay, on May 22nd at the Cinema Arts Center in Huntington. It's called Stand Up, Sit Down. Would you like to tell everyone about it? I mean, we're celebrating what? You 45 years in this industry?
Yeah, it's
I mean-
basically it's 45 years in the industry. It's clips and stories.
There he is.
and,
Yeah.
Of all the crazy stuff that I've done
Yeah.
and how
Through the years.
Yeah, and it's a little retrospective,
Yes.
as they say.
Yes, and there will
because-
be fellow comedians there.
Yes, well, see, that's part of it. See, Stephen Taub got this idea.
Yes,
for the
Steven.
stand-up
Shout out to
sit-down.
Stephen, who's going to come on.
He's going to be
Yes.
the host, and he
The MC
got this
and
idea
host.
for people to comics to do 20 minutes of their act, and they take a break, and then
And then
he
people
interviews
come
them.
up. Yeah.
And then I guess it was when Richie did his.
Yes.
They brought down some comics, and it ended up turning into a roast.
Right,
And
Richie
so
Byrne.
since then, Joey
Joey
Kohler,
Kohler.
I went down for Joey Kohler,
Yes.
and we roasted him.
Yes.
We just roasted Richie Byrne.
Yes.
And
then
apparently
it's
there
your
are some
turn.
who are going to be roasting me on that night. It's just so my head doesn't get too big. But there's a lot of clips and a lot of stories and a lot
And it's
of
a great,
laughs.
it's a great, listen, I was there for Joey, I was there for Joey Cola, and I was there for Richie Byrne, and I'm going to be there for you. It is a fun night out.
It's fun.
And where you
is fun.
depends, because it is hysterical.
It's a lot of
and
laughs.
it's so much fun.
And there'll be a tear or two.
Yes,
Well,
you get a
there's
little,
just some
you get a little
great-
verklempt, and
A little verklempt
you
because
know.
it's just, because comedy is about love, boys and girls. And if you don't have love, what do you have?
Nada.
A thing in the back of your neck the size of a baby's head. That's purple and you don't know what it is. That's
yeah.
all you have when you don't have
Yeah.
love.
So go to Cinema Arts Center and
.org.
pick up a ticket.
And it's centered with an R-E.
Yeah, and pick it up and come see Rob and friends on May 22nd. It is going to be an amazing night.
It should be fun. It should be a lot of fun. I'm half dreading and half looking forward to it. So.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, of
I get
course.
it. I
You
totally
know,
get it.
you've-
I get it.
You've been there. You've done that. You know what it's like. You're a big-time TV star now.
So listen, yeah, okay. Listen, I'm gonna tell you, like I told my guest last week, Jimmy, if you're watching, Parasilis, my daughter doesn't care what I do until I get on Law and Order. She does not care. I will tell her I'm in this movie, I'm in that series. Mom, until you're on Law and Order, I don't care. So I said to Jimmy last week, I said, I just want a 5 and under. I'm not asking a lot. I says, it'll kill me by the time I get there. I'll be a dead body on Law and Order.
You're going to have an agent that can put you up for it? Because, you can't. It's a law in New York. You can't be an actor
I
unless you
know,
do an
I
SVU
know.
or a Law and Order.
I have to get on there.
Oh, but get your agent to put you up there.
I have to
every
get
single
on.
week.
I have to get on.
And you're such a
Before
type.
I die, I have to
You're
get
such
on.
a type.
Listen, there's a minute left.
Yeah.
I love you. I love having you here.
Thank you.
I'm very blessed to know you. I really am. I mean that. And is there anything you'd like to say before we leave? Do you have anything upcoming that, I mean, I know the 22nd.
This is the big thing. That's basically the 22nd, and then I'm
Okay.
just gonna,
Okay.
nap for the rest of the summer, I think. It's
I didn't know if you had anything else in the works that you're working on.
nothing in the
or-
works, but I mean,
all right,
you know,
but this is
it's-
big. This is big. 22nd is big.
Where I am is the result of standing on a lot of shoulders.
Yeah.
Not the least of which are those of my wife and family. And without them,
A huge support system.
I would not have any of this,
Yes.
because without that as a foundation, nothing makes a difference.
It's true.
Nothing makes a difference. Family's everything. So
Yeah,
I'm
amen.
very, very blessed. 4 grandkids, four kids,
4 sons.
4 sons, 4 daughters-in-law.
That's the number, 4.
That's 4.
Yeah.
It's 4.
But
4 Beatles.
We're going to say the 22nd. May 22nd. Cinema Art Center, Huntington. All right.
What letter did we get up to?
Z. We did A to Z.
We did Z.
We did A to Z.
I
We
think
did it all.
We skipped it something. We skipped
did
a
it all.
W, I think. We skipped a
Thank
W.
you so much for doing this.
Thanks for having
My door's
me.
always open.
All right.
All right.
We've heard that about you.
Yes. Listen, I want to thank everyone for watching Tea Time. Please like the show. Please share it. And I'll see you next week. Remember, tell everyone you love them. Good night. Ciao. Say goodbye.